with us Prof Dr R Ganesan for keynote address, who has earned doctorate from reputed IIT Delhi with special focus on entrepreneurship development. He possesses more than 2 decades of research experience in the field of entrepreneurship and management. She is serving as an editorial member and reviewer for numerous journals and possesses more than 20 years of editorial experience. In combining a lot of academic research and societal transformation services to upbringing development, has been conferred with prestigious title Karma Jyoti by Indian Confederation of Non-Governmental Organization, New Delhi, India. Without further ado, I invite Dr. Ganesh for keynote address.
Yeah, good morning to all the dignitaries. Am I audible to all of you? Am I audible to all of you? Hello?
Yes.
Am I audible to all of you?
Yes.
Okay. Today's conference is on international interdisciplinary conference on new trends in law, human rights, management, science, commerce, and humanities and technology. This is the conference today and organized by Department of Law, Central University, Kerala, Thiruvalla campus, Pathanamthitta, and especially with the Global Research Conference Forum by Infinite Global Research Conference Private Limited, Pune, Maharashtra. Well, the conference, because I had seen all the dignitaries who have been advising the past three speakers and in inaugurating and delivering the inaugural note and giving their insights to the conference. And I feel that entrepreneurship education will be appropriate to this topic because the reason it is a holistic discipline. It is not related to only management. It is into all the things. If we talk about law, the law of companies applicable. If we talk about rights, of course, the employee rights are applicable. If we talk about management, yes, it is a managing the business is applicable. If we talk about science, commerce, humanities, and technology, all the disciplines are put together to do any business, and that business owner is always referred to as an entrepreneur. So I thought something to talk on entrepreneurship education perspectives in this forum. So to mention it in this conference, the importance of entrepreneurship education, as well as the strategies for promoting it. Basically, if you talk about entrepreneurship education in a country like India, it started in the way back late 80s, you can say. If you talk about entrepreneurship as a whole, but the concept is existing for a long time since 18th century. With the research cantilon and so on, there are so many things have happened. But before very many thousands of years, also we are into business, but without knowing what we are doing, we're just exchanging, doing a trade. But today, the education, the dimension of education is totally changing. And if we talk about so many educational new disciplines, and new curriculum and all, finally, where it should end? The education has to be applied in the society for its betterment. We talk about dreaming about becoming in the great 7 countries or global countries. You have to talk about a ranking in about a country like India in the global scenario. It talks more about what we do in the education sector and how it goes in general, how it goes and what sort of things to happen in the upcoming future. If you talk about these aspects, you should know something about what is your environment all about. The environment of a country like India is more than 50% youth driven. We talk about 140 crores approximately without a statistic for the last 10 years. Even if we talk like that, it is approximately 140 crores. That means almost 60 to 70 crores population on the youth side now. That is the strength. We talk about positioning India in the future of 2050 across the globe as a G1 country also is possible. But the question is how it is possible, how can make it possible in the ensuing years to come, to know about what sort of a challenging task education is to take into account for strengthening the curriculum from the schooling level to the college level and so on and so forth. The second one is now today's trend is going on, the enterprise concept is service demands. Service enterprises are more. So that's why there are so many students we are seeing since many 2 decades. There are so many students who are entering into the business after getting some experience or into the service sectors than in the technological sector. Okay. This is another thing. And the environment now, in the after the post-pandemic, even pre-pandemic, there are so many institutions and organizations are going into global. And in the post-pandemic, they are all focusing on the digital side. Uh, the digital focus is going on like anything now. So now, if we talk about the educational prospects for any student who is passing out of any institution to know what is basically private sector employment is again going down, though the employment scenario states that the joblessness is more, jobs are also more. Somewhere the cementing of the employability is now questioned, and that is going on. And that talks about the importance of entrepreneurship education alongside the mainstream curriculum of academia. Another one is self-employment concepts are moving on. There are so many aspects going on. Uh, I want some silence, please. There are so many interventions.
We can see also, but here it is not coming.
And, and and that self-employment concept goes on with so many aspects, like the students are into campus bazaar, college bazaar activities and all. These are all happening. These are all happening, but how it goes in a real sense talks about the education streamlining into the minds of the young people or the youth population to move towards entrepreneurship. And finally, entrepreneurship as a career option. That is what we are all seeing now. In the pandemic and post-pandemic, there are enterprises which have been closed down. There are enterprises which are registered and officially processing now. You can see that both the course closer is more, the registration is less. I agree with that, but the young entrepreneurs are upcoming. That is also important, and you can see that. Okay, with this note, we have to talk something about the impact of the scenario with the in the lines of socioeconomic, with based on the pre-pandemic, pandemic, and post-pandemic. Pre-pandemic scenario, education, entrepreneurship education is existing. We all know that, but not to the large extent. In the pandemic, we can see there are so many recession. It's happened in a lot of sectors, and especially in the IT sector and ITS sectors, and even some manufacturing sectors also. And this has necessitated the people to do something new. But the problem is they are not fine-tuned or in the or you can say guided or facilitated properly to get into something of a business. That is why I told you earlier there are few number of young entrepreneurs have registered in the pandemic scenario, and they started to do this business because of the some digital skills they developed over the period of time. That has happened. And the post-pandemic, that is what in the now we are in the post-pandemic scenario. We are all now in the 2021. We can talk 2022, middle and to now. We are in the post-pandemic. The post-pandemic scenario talks more about people realizing that job scenario is dimension of job scenario has totally changed. And as I told you earlier, that is joblessness is more, and jobs are also more. If you talk about the 80s and 70s and 80s cases and all, jobs are less. Joblessness is surmounting at the time. There are so many movies also made out of this sort of a scenario, and we all know that also. But if you talk about 90s, somewhat the joblessness is somewhat reduced, though the population explosion is huge in the country like India. And if you talk about a millennium and post-millennium years, like we talk about 2010 or 2020, before the just before the pandemic, you can see the joblessnesses are more, are totally more, and the jobs are also more. That is keeping us worrying. We talk about these sort of conferences, which is multidisciplinary or interdisciplinary conferences, congregating various disciplines and to give their contribution in the perspective of law or in the perspective of humanities and the perspective of human rights. All those things are taken into account. But the scenarios, dormancy, the knowledge dormancy of towards employability is existing still in a country like India. That is the reality. We don't talk about globally, it is okay. But in a country like India with a huge population of 140 crores approximately, and where this scenario is existing, we are academicians, we are also into organization, I am also an entrepreneur. We are seeing so many people who are coming for jobs and other things. We are saying that the academic credentials are good, but the employability credentials are not up to the mark. That happened, that necessitated the teachers of talking about more about entrepreneurship education in a conference like this to see the thoughts in the minds of all the academicians and the practitioners and the researchers and the students who are participating in this conference. That is why I chosen this topic. So by definition, you all know that what is who is an entrepreneur. Entrepreneur is the one who always searches for a change and responds to it and exploit it as an opportunity. That was told by the great innovative and entrepreneur and Peter F. Drucker has already said. The problem is today's generation is having the searches for change. I agree with that, but the searches for change are towards enjoyment or entertainment and not into the totally into the academic. That is what we are all seeing for very many years. In the recent times, you can talk about the advent of 2010 till today. We are seeing a lot of people are the youngsters are moving towards the technological side in having these gadgets, having these Androids, iPhones, all those things are there, are very, very well aware about the apps and other things. But how these things are used for their betterment or their development, their self-development and their employability, skill development, all those things are all questionable. Now, in this scenario also it is questionable. And that's why the very rightly the director has pointed the searches for change and response to it and exploit it as an opportunity. The problem is we are worried about enterprising human workforces or enterprising citizens to come in a big number in a country like India to talk about the country's prosperity and nation building and all the things than a normal pass out from any college and who is getting into a job and living a very, very, very normal level of person. Because job givers to be more in number in the upcoming future because the employability now the scenarios joblessness is more, jobs are also more, but the scenario might change with any interventions. Like, the pandemic intervention has made a lot of lessons to all of us. And that's why the conference has been having the theme as amidst pandemic. They kept the theme finally ending with amidst pandemic. So amidst pandemic, what has happened and what post-pandemic, what is going to happen? That is also there, no? So that context only I am talking about this entrepreneurship education perspective. So if we talk about perspectives, we all know about entrepreneurship to some extent, but perspectives goes on with how to create the ambience. What sort of things have not taken seriously or taken to some extent and which is not what to say generalized or practiced widely across the nation like a country like India and even with all the developing countries. I can put it across the globe. So the coping and growing competitive environment, that is what we are not having. That we are having the environment of education. The education environment is okay. India is having its literacy far beyond many of the countries. We agree with that. But the coping and growing the competitive environment, growing a competitive environment is very, very important for the future prosperity of the nation in terms of socioeconomic upliftment and development. So that area that people have to think about it, really, the policymakers or the academicians or the people who are all listening to this sort of a, or say conference keynote to think about it. So what sort of environment we are in and how to create the environment for the future prospects. That is number two is understanding the entrepreneurship facets. What are the different entrepreneurship facets are existing? There are different types of entrepreneurs. We talk about techno entrepreneur, we talk about web entrepreneur, webpreneur, we talk about medical entrepreneur, mompreneurs. There's so many facets of entrepreneurship is existing types and there are different dimensions are also existing. So the ultimate idea is to know what is the important aspects in grooming the youngsters or youth population from the schooling to the college level. That is the total tenet of this concept. And the third one is skill acquisition and developing adroitness. The adroitness against skill development. The problem today, we are all facing is skill development. How the development can take place. How to groom the youngster or the children at school levels and in the college years towards the skill development. Because the skills are there. We don't deny that the skills are not present with anybody. Everybody is having skills. How to group the skills for a prosperity, for a economic prosperity, or for a employability prosperity. That is very important. That is what we are now not doing that. We are of course some established institutions like IITs, IIMs, and IIScs do have the provision of getting their pass outs to be employed, and even in tier 1 colleges or tier 2 colleges like reputed universities like Central University of Kerala, or you talk about any central universities, or you talk about any NITs, there the employability is not at all questionable. Because they go for higher education and they go abroad and they settle there. These are all the things. But actually, the real problem is existing on the skill development at the tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 level of colleges, and even at the school level. These things are not groomed properly. I can say they are all skillful, but the grooming their talents is very, very important. That is not happening. So that's why we are talking about under the perspective of entrepreneurship education and creating enterprising workforces. That is even giving a small activity in a school and seeing how many people. Because school, if you talk about the display of the activities in the school level is or college levels, we can see only the culturals. Other than the culturals, what are the activities they can get into? Because in culturals, we can see a lot of innovative things they do. They do skits, they do plays, they do dance. All the things we are all seeing that for a very long time. But how these things are, how the other things can be interwoven in this curriculum? Okay, cultural is one aspect to display the skills of dancing or acting. All those things are all we are seeing the skills of students. But other than that, what sort of a things we are trying to promote to establish or to pump out the workforce which are enterprising in nature, or you can say in other words, enterprising workforces who's coming as the output of a school and becoming the input of a college, and again coming as the output of from the college and getting the input of a as a corporate or any company to be quite enterprising. How it is possible? That is where the employability is questionable. The question is we are encouraging the talents in this sort of a platform like culturals and other things, but we are not keeping any other fest. We are keeping there. I don't deny the fact that the colleges are keeping college bazaar, all those things. I think are happening, but not frequently. The frequency of conducting these things and the occurrence of these sort of events are all questionable in a larger spectra like a country like India, even other developing countries. So that is where the base is missing. That is why these are the places where the entrepreneurial base. I strongly believe that entrepreneurial base cannot be built over only the colleges or universities. That is hardly it happens. That's why we can see even despite of having EDCs, ESL activities, all the things are there, e-week activities and all. There we cannot say that how many students are becoming entrepreneurs soon after the pass out of we can say a gestation of 3 years to 5 years or something like that. But we cannot see that. You can see the alumni, if you take any college alumni list, you can see how many people are entrepreneurs. That is only outnumbered out of the total population passed out in a particular year. After 5 years, I can say. If we talk about the pass out of 2015 of any college, we can see till today, after 2023, you can see that entrepreneurs pass out will be outnumbered totally. You can say less than 50. Less than, I can even say 50 is a large number. I can say less than 20. So that base is missing. But I strongly believe in this base can be created in the school levels only. That is very, very important. And there only I think the purpose of this of delivering this keynote in this conference is the students or the scholars or the academicians in this sort of a platform or a forum to think about going back to schools and delivering something useful for the school community to talk about entrepreneurship. Even talk about law also. They should know about what's going on. Even the compliance you talk about. There are so many people who wanted to do business or do wanted to establish themselves, don't know, are not aware about the law or legalities on the process. So that way that the entrepreneurial base can be created, at the school level. That's very, very important. Fostering the student startup activities. Student startup activities are fostered in the college level or the university level, like having the technology bureau for incubation, or you talk about EDCs, you talk about IIPCs, you talk about IICs. There are so many Cs which are cells are acting in the top level. If you talk about even IIT, they have this incubation cells, incubation centers, technology bureau for incubation centers, and industry institute partnership cells, international institute innovation cells. All those cells are there, but the question is, where is the activity? How many activities are coming? How many funds are received? How many incubation startup innovation have taken place? That talks about, because we are talking about this particular subject, entrepreneurship education, which is the backbone for the country like India in the ensuing years to come. Now only they are starting in a very, very snail space, I can say. If we talk about entrepreneurship education, the school level, we can talk about one. I know something about one or two schools, like a J. Apoda group of institutions in Maharashtra, where they have the subject called entrepreneurship at the school levels. And some ICSE syllabus, they are talking about something about innovation and skill centric activities. But what about others? Because others are huge in number. These set of schools are outnumbered. That the fulcrum of this problem is we are not taking into the government schools, we're not taking to the other government aided schools about talking about these startup activities at the school level, talking about entrepreneurship education at the school level. That is the lacuna for not prospering in, because India is a big market. We can see that India is a big market. That's what everybody is saying. Even the global geopolitical conditions are talking, are not going against a country like India because of the business what they're having in India, because there are a lot of consumers. So once you change this platform and make the business to prosper from a country like India, then they become our customers. We are now, you can say, India is totally dependent, the market dependent economy is now driving the country like India, where US economy is totally based on India. And you can talk about Chinese economy is based on India. And because even some part of European economy is also based on India. So India is a land of business enrichment, I can say like that, with a lot of consumers and customers across various uh, platforms, various sectors. But we have to turn around sometime to talk about our products to be exported, not the only the agricultural products, or talk about our finished foods coming there, because we are now importing a lot of finished foods and other accessories, but not exporting the accessories. We are exporting only the raw materials. We are exporting only the raw material for the garments. All those things we are doing, but that is agriculture produce. But we are not exporting, or we cannot making an international hit on the market in larger spectra. Outnumbered activities are not considered here. Larger spectra across the globe, making that made in India products are going across the globe, which is very very important for, and that regulates the world system and other aspects of political things to happen, and that is possible only with the startup activities. What we do here in startup innovation, of course, there are institutions which are into the startup innovation, but I believe that the school level startup innovation, you can see, you can remember the olden times when we are all doing our schooling and all. There's a science exhibition was there. The science activities will be there. There are so many displays will be there. Of course, we are all knowing about what are the science exhibition all about. But these exhibitions, whether they are happening now in a school in a serious scale, is questionable. So that sort of a things have to come up. You have to revive these activities and to do it at the school level. So that's what I told. Entrepreneurship Education Academy talks more about the primary level and secondary level. So primary level, we can talk about identifying the skills of the child. Secondary level, we talk about grooming the skills of the child to become I would say, enterprising youth. That is very important. And we have the industry training institutes and polytechnic. They can have the tie-ups with these sort of schools and give the training, whichever is very very important for that. Whichever it's in accordance with the interest of the child. That is very very important. So the other skill is also parallelly going on alongside the academics, so that they will be also happy once they learn some skills. They will be very happy. So the same thing, the colleges and universities are all having this entrepreneurship education as a subject, as a elective in a B school. There are so many things happening. But the output of this entrepreneurship education is not so serious, because we say, for example, we are all studying. I am a physics student basically, so I done a physics from since my primary education. You can have the science. We are studying the physics for a long time. Till BSc physics, we have studied the physics. So to some extent, we know something about physics and other associated activities of related to physics. If I'm seeing some technology related to science, or I can relate it to the physics and I can think about it. The problem is I'm continuously doing that subject for a long time. So when you do continuously traveling or doing a subject for a long time, they'll get the expertise in that. So if you talk about entrepreneurship is it's a congregated discipline. It's one of the talents. I can say it's an important skill. But technically, the other things to be taught across this entrepreneurship education also, to make them skillful. That is very very important. That is what is not happening in a large perspective, in a large spectra in the colleges, institutions, universities. They are all doing, but not doing the real work in maximum possible extent. They are not doing the work. So that is what they have to change. So you can see the entrepreneurship development in academia and senior trends. You can see EDC cells functional to many of the institutes, colleges, even polytechnics. and industry institute partnership cells. It's established in a lot of engineering colleges and technology centric colleges, even science colleges, arts and science colleges. Industry IICs, it's happening in a lot of these schools. It's there existing. TPIs, it's there in universities, in IITs, in IICs, in IIMs and all. And IICs, it's already existing in a lot of institutions have established IICs like technology centric colleges are having this size. And School Innovation Council is also upcoming in the ICSE type of schools. They have the School Innovation Council to do some activities on related to entrepreneurship. But all these are established in accordance with the mandate of the government of India. We agree with that. And there are some institutes which are having this own interest of promoting entrepreneurship. Also, they are having doing these sort of ED activities. But the output is not promising till today. That is the reality. With the population system, as I told you earlier, about 50% is youth-driven population in a country like India, where entrepreneurship education becomes significant, prominence in the country like India, where we have to do a lot of work. With even if you talk about 10% of the total population out of the total youth population, which is I meant to say youth population means you can say they talk about the age of 18 to 25 or 30 years are into this entrepreneurship domain means that is the biggest thing because 10%. If you talk about youth population, is around 25 to 30 crores in a country like India. So 10% is 3 to 4 crores. That itself is a big number to give a job givers to a lot of people, and that is a humongous achievement for a country like India. But it is not happening in a larger spectrum of, if you see the larger point of view or larger views in a country like India, it is it is still under the limbo stage. It's still under the dormant stage. So some strategies I wanted to recommend before I don't want to take much of a time and just to cite some of the strategies which you can think about it, people know it also, but with my experience as a professor, as a dean, former dean, and as a entrepreneur, social entrepreneur, even business entrepreneur, I just wanted to see what's going on, why these things are not happening. By taking these entrepreneurship education strategies, maybe in future it will be possible, or the institutions have to take corrections, they can take the course corrections to enact these things, and that will bring in prosperity to a country like India in terms of entrepreneurship development in a holistic way. Inducting the faculties and teachers in academia to companies or industries for pragmatic learning, exposure towards entrepreneurship or grooming the students in academia. Usually the BITS Pilani, I can say, I know some institutions like BITS Pilani where I served also long back. So where they have the practice schools to induct the faculty to go to the practice schools to know, they make the students to learn about what is the practical aspects in their particular thing. But the question is if we talk about industry visit or any other things which are happening in a university or a college, they are only doing the industry visit, but not understanding the things. But so that's why I wanted to say instead of students, I think the faculties have to be inducted to know what's going on in the industrial side. There are so many transitions have taken place in the post-pandemic. You can see now it's totally the whole world is going on digitalization. So digital era is governing everything. So even I can participate in this conference, though I cannot come on live due to some other preoccupations, a short notice of the conference for the organizers. But I can come on online because I know something about digital skills, online skills in using Zoom. Otherwise, I cannot log in. Also, I need some assistance. So the question is, the world is moving towards a digital centric era, wherein these things are possible, and I feel that the faculties or teachers who are into any schools have to become enterprising. Not a normal teaching is going to fetch out all the fruits of our expectations to happen in the country like India. So selecting and recruiting enterprising faculties or teachers to appropriate criteria, support from external agencies for future prospects of academia is very, very important, and that has to be very serious. And now the time has come in the post-pandemic, you can say, and we are not sure that what will happen to the whole world if another pandemic eats out. How to survive? How to survive is the biggest question. So that is the enterprising skills make them to survive. Those who are very enterprising in the field of business are existing. I am seeing as an entrepreneur and as a practitioner. And those who are not aware about the digital skills are not aware about what's going on and they are totally traditional centric are totally into the closures. So this has happened in the pandemic and we don't know what will hit out. What will be the next hit out for our globe? We don't know because there are lot of global transition is happening with the geopolitical aspects as well as the climatic conditions. So we don't know that anything will happen, but we have to be prepared in anticipation to that, to talk about this sort of education system and process to students, and to make them prepared for the survival, I can say, and equally for the socio-economic development. Introducing a holistic activity-based learning curriculum for infusing students with entrepreneurship development in academia at school levels. That is what I already said. That infusing the students with entrepreneurship development. That is, interactions alone like this, calling a professor, calling an entrepreneur alone will not suffice. Some regular activities to be there at the school levels. That's what I'm saying. Instituting entrepreneurship development unit, EDUs to be there. Like EDCs, whichever is there, we don't know how far it is functional at college levels and university levels, or even IIT levels. EDUs are required for the school levels for enhancing the creativity and innovation skills, which will be the most important aspect for the students to understand their talents and to sharpen the skills in their particular talent. So enabling competitive environment to students, to, as I told you earlier, ambience is very important, and I can say at least they should have activity classes in the government school. That's what I feel, because the schools always focus on the other aspects. Even physical education is there, but they should have activity classes which will pull out the talents, which will make them to participate and to know the student and the teacher will have that interaction to know what sort of skills the student possesses. Accordingly, they can be encouraged, which will create an entrepreneurial cult across the nation. That's what the objective of NFD is, also to create an entrepreneurial cult across the nation. So that is very, very important. That has to take place, and introducing and providing an exclusive scholarship or incentive grant to motivate the students to go into this startup or incubation activities or entrepreneurial activities, and that can be considered by the schools and colleges. Of course, institutes like higher learning, like IITs, they do have the seed money to support incubation for any student startup activities. That imparting the entrepreneurship and skill development programs, certifications along with digital skills in academia through professional collaborations or tie-ups with established external agencies, corporates, organizations for building a vibrant entrepreneurial base for future prospects. For instance, NFPT also, in our National Foundation for Entrepreneurship Development, is also conducting certification courses on e-entrepreneurship and innovation and credit for business, especially for the first MBA students since 2019. We are doing the fourth batch. Something we are talking about entrepreneurship at the first year level itself to the students. So that will create the thought process. That will increase the thought process towards why not I take an entrepreneurship as a career in future, at least not immediately after the passing out of the after graduation from the college. They can think about it at least after 3 to 5 years. At least they are thinking and they are taking an action. Means that is the strength for creating a vibrant nation and vibrant globe, I can say. And frequently motivating and or facilitating students in academia towards participating and attending the workshops, training, seminars, conferences, or presenting research papers or case studies into entrepreneurship and innovation avenues for grooming their understanding through holistic learning. That's very, very important. The holistic learning, the entrepreneurship by itself is a holistic discipline. It's an integrated discipline for all the disciplines put together becomes entrepreneurship. It is not related to only management. It's not related to only to psychology. It's not related to only to the law. It's not related to only to the humanities. It's not only related to the engineering and technology or science or medical sciences. This is not like that. It is a congregated discipline. It's a discipline which congregates every discipline into it. So that sort of a motivation the students should have to have the facilitation for promoting this or promulgating this entrepreneurship education, and making e-cell incubation cell activities and industry partnership cell are having its mere existence. They are only existing, but I have seen so many academic institutions across India, even across the developing countries, and they are existing. They are doing some activities like interaction with the entrepreneurship seminar. They conduct the seminar. They conduct small activities, but not the expected level because of their own dormancy. The faculties involved in the process are also not quite, let's say, vibrant towards entrepreneurship. That is a problem, and that is maybe the thing. That's why I told you earlier that the faculty should be indebted to the companies to know what's happening, how to bridge the corporate industry and academia, corporate public industry or academia institutional relationship is basically based on the what's happening to be taught here, so that the output becomes a proper or enterprising input to the corporate. That's what. Maybe in future they become the enterprising resources or becoming an entrepreneur in the future. That is possible. Finally, the national accreditation bodies must include entrepreneurship and or startup activities as one of the evaluation criteria because they do have a lot of other activities, but whether they are taking seriously about how many entrepreneurs have produced over the period of 5 years at least in any established institution or university, they have to check these criteria and strictly monitor the entrepreneurship progression across the academy. Maybe that sort of a mechanism, compliance should be made so that it becomes serious. And because if entrepreneurship education is alive means all the disciplines have the place to survive. Otherwise, it is only reading the science, reading the art subjects, reading the technology, reading the engineering subjects, but not a practice. The practice is totally into the entrepreneurship. Like if you talk about any innovation, if we talk about any innovation is possible, basically the person who's doing the innovation may be enterprising in nature. That is what that is for the socioeconomic progression. That person has been having the thought process to do that indirectly making money, indirectly pushing their socioeconomic progression, and contributing towards the national building and global building. That is very important. And that is the intent of this keynote to talk about entrepreneurship education. And finally, I want to say these words that is in future, entrepreneurship education becomes a vibrant discipline, and every institute or every school have to think about this seriously and to enact the subject, and the policymakers, the government sector also to think about keeping the entrepreneurship education at the primary or at least at the high school level to start with, and to keep it as a subject for all the disciplines alongside the disciplines. Even if we talk about BSc, if we talk about BL, if we talk about any discipline, any graduation or post graduation, this entrepreneurship should be a subject or a particular unit to be taught seriously with some practical aspects for grooming their entrepreneurial talents of the youngsters and youth population of a country like India to prosper in the near future. And I hope that I have done the justice. And thank you and Jai Hind. And thanks to all the organizers for this conference. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for the insightful thought about entrepreneurship.